Almost everyone who's played Minecraft has gotten bored of their world at some point or another. For some players, more than once, or even every single time they start anew. So you're definitely not alone in feeling a tad bored of your world or just generally tired of the game as a whole. I've had my world for over 3 years now and I still feel really inspired to play in it, so I think that makes me at least a little bit qualified to share some of my best ways to keep your Minecraft world feeling fresh and exciting. I know it's hard to resist starting a new world when your current one gets a bit dull, but the thing is, you'll probably just end up in the same position as before, and at that point it's just a vicious cycle. So instead, if you really feel like you need some sort of fresh start, just move somewhere else in your world, and then you can begin again from there without having to get rid of what you've done already. Because at some point in the future, you may want to return, possibly through inspiration to add on to what you have, or just purely for nostalgia. You can also decide if you want to bring any supplies with you or have a completely empty inventory. Maybe you don't fancy getting all of those diamond tools and armor pieces again, or maybe you do. The point is, even though starting a new world is tempting, I do believe having a long-term world is far much more rewarding. As someone who's made a lot of building tutorials, I may be shooting myself in the foot with this one. But if you can, try to build everything yourself. Sure, if you want to follow a tutorial, you'll probably end up with a cool looking build, but it's not exactly yours. Now, I will say, you may not care about always building your own stuff and instead just like having something that you think looks nice in your own world. I know there's some of you who have made my builds into your worlds along with more creations from other creators, and that's awesome. But I just thought it was worth highlighting because that could be what you're missing. Over time you'll improve your builds and you can even see the progression you're making, which is pretty neat. The same goes with farms or redstone machines. I'm guilty of this for sure. It's not my area of expertise, but whenever I create something technical myself without any additional help, there is a sense of pride that you don't really get when copying from a video. When I say add lore into your world, I don't mean you have to create a perplexing detailed backstory of every single build that you make, full of rich history covering everything that's happened since the dawn of time. No. You can, but I mean it in a much simpler way. Take my pirate village here as an example. This build tells a bit of a story. A small crew of pirates once shipwrecked onto the shore here before setting up a small base on the beach and then expanding out into the sparse jungle. Eventually their group grew so much that they were able to build a larger ship ready to set sail back out into the ocean. Now, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that if I didn't just say, or unless you watched that episode, but I know, and in your case with your builds, you'll know. I think it just makes building a little bit more fun and gives a purpose to the build and attaches a story to your world. I also like doing this for really small details. This campfire, for example. To you, it might just look like a normal campfire and nothing else. But in my head, I see it as an old camp no longer in use that was once set up in this tiny cove by a stranded adventurer. I think it's a nice way to use your imagination. If you've watched my videos before, it's probably not a big surprise that I'm talking about this again. I go on and on about how important pathways are when it comes to making a world feel more connected, for two major reasons really. Number one, they just look good. If you plop a bunch of builds around your base without any pathways to connect them, it's gonna look a bit unfinished. But if you add walkways in between them, along with the help of some custom trees in this case, it's gonna look a whole lot more complete. And number two, it feels so much nicer walking along a pathway to get around your world rather than just taking the straight line from A to B, or zipping over with an Electra. Your pathways don't have to be anything super fancy. If you've set up on grass, I'd honestly just recommend a bunch of path blocks if nothing else. It doesn't take long at all if you've got your builds all in one place, and even if they're a ways away from each other, it may still be worth doing too, just to try and tie everything in your world together. It's very easy to fall into the trap of doing whatever feels most straightforward to accomplish, whether this is a certain way of playing the game or more specifically related to building a certain style that you like. There is no shame in doing this. It's a sandbox game after all. You should play it however you want to. So if that means favouring a specific style of building because that's what you're best at and you're happy doing so, cool. You should keep doing that. But on the other hand, I do think every now and then it wouldn't hurt to branch out and try something different. This could be a building technique you love the look of, but have never really quite been able to get right. Or even trying your hand at redstone if you've never messed around with it before. Or PvP, speedrunning, farming, adventuring, the list goes on. Having a balance of these two things is a recipe for success. Continuing to do the thing you're good at and enjoy makes you happy, but challenging yourself with something new keeps your world and the game as a whole from getting too repetitive. There is so much you can do in Minecraft, endless amounts really, so don't block yourself in a comfortable corner and stay there. I find always having a goal or objective to follow keeps me from getting bored. This is usually in terms of building for me. Having multiple projects that I want to get to allows me to stay inspired and also motivated. There's always something I can be doing and I've got multiple options so I can pick whichever one I feel like. With how I make my videos, I tend to start and finish a project in one go before moving on to something else and doing the same, but if you just play the game, there's nothing to say you can't have many different projects all on the go at the same time. So if one day you feel like working on something, but after a while you've had enough, you can just move on to something else. Just make sure you don't have too much on the go at once, then it can feel a bit overwhelming and you might end up with a bunch of unfinished projects that you never get to. The point is, you've always got something you can be working on. This saves you from doing the classic sprint jump around until you think of something. And if you do find yourself in this scenario, just doing some simple base chores, shall we call them, can feel more productive than nothing at all. Then you're in a better headspace for ideas to come to you. For a long while, I always had this unexplained need to keep Minecraft as vanilla as possible. I thought if I added mods of any kind, it wouldn't feel like Minecraft. To a certain extent, I get where I was coming from, but if you're at the point where you just don't have the same excitement for the vanilla game anymore, why not just add some mods? You've got nothing to lose. This doesn't need to be a giant mod pack filled with all sorts of crazy additions that really stray far from the original game. Not at all. There are so many subtle mods that you can add into your world that just enhance and improve upon the vanilla experience. Most of the mods that I use don't inherently change anything about how the game is played. A lot of them are purely aesthetic that bring an updated, fresh look to Minecraft. That could be what you're missing out on, or just maybe some new features you can mess around with. Treat the mods as though you're adding mini updates of sorts. Not too many at once, just see what you do and don't get on with. Minecraft is a game that lacks a lot of movement. Other than you, the player, mobs, and the sky, I guess, nothing really moves around. Everything you build with is very static. But there are a handful of ways you can add even just a tiny bit of movement into your builds that will bring them to life slightly. For example, minecarts, campfire smoke, or just fire, redstone blocks, even items like the spore blossom that give off these gorgeous particles. All of these things just add that extra bit of ambience and movement to a build so not everything feels frozen in place. In a similar vein, I think having builds you can interact with to some degree is a great way of bringing life to something. Whether it's a piston door you go through in order to get in, or a minecart you can take a ride on, or a button of some kind you press and something will happen. There's lots of fun things you can do with this. And obviously adding mobs into a build is a great way to make something feel more alive. If you build a village, add villagers. It might be a bit of a hassle, but it'll be worth it. Even just having a dog sat in the room wagging its tail can make a difference. Building things that feel alive is going to keep your world interesting and might even make you want to go back to them just to have a look around at what you've made. This is another subject I preach on about quite a bit. A lot of people forget Minecraft is a sandbox game. You can do whatever you want in your world, however you want to do it. You make the rules. Don't feel obliged to play the game in a certain way just because that's what everyone else does. No, do your own thing. Mobs annoying you? Play on peaceful mode. Hate going in search of your items when you die? Play with keep inventory on. You want to use a teleport command so you don't have to walk thousands of blocks home to your base after a fun adventure? Go ahead. There is 0 point in playing this game if you're having a rubbish time. There's many more better things you can do with your life than getting frustrated at a game, especially if that game is Minecraft. Same sort of thing goes for building or creating anything really. Do it however you want to. There's no need to build something in a certain way just because that's what's popular at the moment. As long as you're happy with it, that's the only thing that matters. Just play Minecraft however you want to play Minecraft. So if none of these tips have worked and your world is officially stale and you are officially bored of Minecraft, take a break. This might be a 5-minute cool off before you get back to it with a new idea, or it could be a 5-month hiatus where you let your motivation and inspiration come back to you. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just step away. There's no point in forcing it. Minecraft is a game with massive longevity, and I truly believe if you have ever once enjoyed it, you can enjoy it again.